Date with a Debut is recorded and produced on Awabakal Country, and I pay my respects to all elders past and present and extend that to any First Nations people tuning in. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. On with the show. Welcome to Date with a Debut, a podcast about debut authors, their incredible books, and their journey to publication. If you're looking for a new author to discover or writing inspiration for your own story and you don't know where to start, this is the place to be. I'm Nick Wasiliev, host of the show, and I'm delighted to welcome another debut author in today's episode. If you enjoyed this show, jump online and give us a thumbs up, a 5-star review. It really helps the show out. If you also want to hear episodes when they drop, be sure to subscribe to Words and Nerds, or you can subscribe to Date with a Debut on Podbean to hear the latest episodes as they drop. Want to support the show more? You can also subscribe to my Patreon in the description to get early access to episodes, book reviews, recommendations, and a whole lot more. Wherever you are listening, thank you for listening to us and supporting the Australian book industry. You can also find any books mentioned in today's podcast down in the description. Today, I'm joined by Holly Brunnbauer, who is an award-winning emerging fiction author who's earned numerous accolades in writing competitions across Australia, New Zealand, and the USA. Today, she works as both a stay-at-home author, but also sought-after virtual assistant for published and aspiring authors. I'm here today, though, to talk about her debut novel, What Did I Miss?, which is published by HarperCollins, which you can get a copy of right down in the description. We will discuss some mild spoilers, so I recommend you get a copy right now, or at least very soon. I started off by asking Holly about her journey into the world of writing, but also specifically the things that she identified becoming a virtual assistant for published and aspiring authors, and some of the challenges and recommendations that authors need when it comes to marketing and releasing their books. Holly, welcome to Date with a Debut.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm coming to you from Awabakal Country.
It is so nice to have you on the show. I'm so glad to be able to talk to you about your amazing book. What did I miss? Another rom-com on the show. I'm so happy to have another rom-com on the show. It's always good to add to the list that's of growing rom-coms. But in classic fashion, once again, in the lead up to this show, I got distracted by looking at your career and everything that you have done. And we always like to kind of dive into that a little bit before we dive into the book. Because you sent me, for context for all of our listeners, you sent me a huge, massive document in the lead up to this show detailing topics, subject matter, everything. And I'm like, yep, there's the assistant. There's the virtual assistant that you are coming out front and center. And one thing I kind of wanted to address off the bat is that, you know, you're a stay-at-home author. That's your kind of your role, but you also are a virtual assistant for published and aspiring authors.
Yes.
I kind of know that you fell into writing in the writing space, kind of, you know, blogging and copywriting and building up slowly from there. But out of curiosity, what drew you to focusing on being an assistant for authors? I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always loved technology. So I love building websites and I love social media and blogging and copywriting. And I love Canva and, you know, just branding and stuff like that. So these were all things that I had taught myself. And, you know, most authors hate doing those things, whereas I will waste hours doing them. And they just feel like fun to me. And then I heard an author on a podcast, and she said she was looking for a virtual assistant, but she didn't know what she actually needed one for. And I went and had a little sticky beak at her online profile. So I went to her website, I went to her social media, I had a look everywhere I could find her online, and I wrote a long list of things that she needed, like just to be nice. Like I wasn't saying I was going to do it. But then as I was writing that list, because she had a book coming out and I was like, well, where's your book? Like, it's not even on here. It's not on your profile. It's not on your bio. You know, you need a virtual assistant to do all these things. And then as I was writing, I was like, hold on, I could do all those things. Like, what if I did that for her? And so I kind of offered myself, I said, you know, this is what I could do, blah, blah, blah. And then from there, it just kind of took off, but via word of mouth. And I'm part of the Romance Writers of Australia, and being part of that community is great because they just kept, you know, telling people like, oh, you need a website, or oh, you need your newsletter set up. Holly can do that for you. So I've just, you know, been booked out, and I've now brought on another virtual assistant to the team to help out with the workload. So it's been amazing.
That's awesome. Like, you've turned it into a full-on hustle. I
Yeah.
respect, and if there's one thing I love, it is I respect hustle. And now that you've kind of, that's awesome that you've actually got, like, there's a community out there that needs this sort of information and knowledge that you're able to provide. And seeing as I have you on this show, and seeing as talking about, authors getting to kind of getting themselves established as a key cornerstone of this show, I just feel like I have the what an opportunity to kind of ask that question about promotion a bit, because I think a lot of authors, and maybe this is just from my own experience of being around the industry and talking with a lot of debut authors, a lot of authors really struggle to market themselves. I think it's something that is a bit of a challenge compared to, say, if you're a singer, if you're an actor, if you're, you have a different form of media. At the end of the day, if you still have a book coming out, you're still marketing a creative product. You have something that you want people to consume and enjoy. And, being able to kind of nail down being having marketing and selling a book, there's a real craft to it. As you kind of say, you have all this knowledge that a lot of authors, they've written this book and they've created this great story on the page, but they probably wouldn't know, how do I sell this to people? How do I market this to people? What would that idea of authors, of trying to get authors to be better at that kind of craft of marketing, ring true to you in any way? And do you think that it's something that the industry itself needs to kind of, like, we need to find a way to kind of push this a little bit more?
Absolutely, because even when I have authors come and they need to provide me their about page for their website, they are notoriously awful at writing about themselves. They can write brilliantly, and just when it comes to that about page, I'm like, "Oh, do you want me to fix this a little bit?" Because it's a different type of writing when you're trying to promote yourself, and we're very humble too. And I think it's also a bit of an Australian thing that we don't like to talk ourselves up too much. So it is easier when someone else is doing that for you. But I think a really good way to market yourself without marketing yourself is to put yourself out there by immersing yourself in a community or creating your own. And so there's various ways you can do that. You can join writing organizations, you can attend book launches, you can go volunteer at festivals, you could start a podcast. You don't have to always be like, oh, do I have to be on social media? No, you can actually join existing communities, get your name out there. And what happens, I find, is that a lot of the opportunities that come your way are from people that you know. So please don't think that your publicist is going to do all the work. Majority of everything that's come my way for the lead up to my book has been through someone I know. They've either reached out to me, or when I've reached out to them, they've said yes because we already have a relationship. So, those opportunities will open up, more doors will open up, but you're not really talking about yourself. Like you're just going to these events, making friends, and writing friends and book friends are the best kind. And then the work really does itself because the word of mouth travels around through that way. So if you are sort of like, I don't want to be on social media, that's okay. There are other things that you can do to really put yourself out in the community. Another thing I would say is you don't actually need to tell people your book's good. You need other people to say it's good. Social proof is so important. So obviously, if you're traditionally published, you don't really have control of how many arcs are going out and, all those early reviewers and stuff. You do get a little bit of say, like they might ask you for a list of reviewers that you have a relationship with that they'll send it out to. So start taking note of people. As soon as my book got acquired, I started writing down the names of bookstagrammers that I could see that really loved Australian rom-coms. But the thing is, if you say don't have that relationship, that's okay. But when you get those reviews in, because you will, they're going to come in either from Goodreads or through, online, like say a newspaper or whatever means they come in, or bookstagrammers and TikTokers and stuff like that. Do something with that. Don't just let that slide by and go, oh, thank you so much for reviewing my book, and that's it. No, put it on your website. Perhaps even if it's an amazing review from someone who's really revered, I would put that in my bio on your social media. You would create some graphics. You'd put it in your newsletter. You could have it in the welcome, the welcome email that when people sign up to your newsletter, like again, it's not you saying your book's great, it's someone else saying it. And that is so important. And it also feels less icky than you going, oh, I think my book's really funny. No, have someone else say that.
Amazing advice. Oh my God, I could pick your brains about it all day, but I know we actually have a book to talk about. It's so funny. You've actually answered my last question, which I was going to be like one piece of marketing advice for authors or aspiring authors listening, but you've just given me 3. So that's I love it. It makes me laugh. I think it's great that you're absolutely right in terms of that, talking about taking advantage of the content when it actually comes your way, and also, honest to God, if my own, just to kind of relay a point on top of this, like, you can, the best thing you can do is, if you have a person that you actually target, is genuinely reach out and ask, because people are willing to give their time. People are interested and want people to do well, particularly in this industry. I think there is a real thing with Australian authors that we actually do really want. Yeah, we actually do really want you to do well. Once you get into that community, there's people who really do actually want you to do well. As a good example from my off the back of kind of good quotes and praise and stuff like that, which we'll also talk a little bit later with your book. I genuinely thought when I put out my book, I'm never going to get like a good quote or whatever like that. And then someone asked, who would be someone you would really want to get a good quote from? I replied, John Marsden. I want a quote from him because he is an icon. He is it. He is the pinnacle for me. And they said, send it to him. I sent it to him. I got a quote from
That's
him.
amazing.
So do not be surprised if people will say yes. Give people the opportunity to check you out, and you will not be disappointed. Obviously people are busy. They've got their own lives. They'll take their time, but it is a community that genuinely does want to support you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about this book that you have done. What is this book that we've talked about? It is, of course, your beautiful book, What Did I Miss? So for everyone on the YouTube channel, I'm holding up an advanced reading copy, but you can also see the final cover design, which is up on the screen now. You've mentioned to me that you have listened to a couple of episodes. You know Amy Hutton, you know a couple of people, so you probably know what comes next in the format. I'm a slave to the format of the show. And I am now in a lift with you. We are going up. It is time for your elevator pitch. What Did I Miss about?
Okay. What Did I Miss is a fresh and feisty rom-com about Michaela, who is newly divorced, almost 30, and ready to tick off her list all the things she missed out on in her 20s, starting with a one-night stand. So she meets a random guy at the bar, and as fate would have it, not so random, he reappears in her life, and suddenly she's fighting feelings she didn't sign up for. And even if she wanted to date him, which she doesn't, she can't, because her auntie is bribing her to stay single until her birthday in order to inherit something that Michaela doesn't necessarily want, but her ex-husband desperately does. And there's nothing Michaela would love more than to get back at him for the awful thing he did to end their marriage. So the question is, can Michaela stay single until her 30th birthday and experience all the things she thought she missed out on, or will she start a new decade with more regrets? How'd I go?
Bing! We've arrived. Nailed it. Absolutely perfected the dismount. We are here. I love it. It's what a great pitch and what a great story we have here. And the first thing I kind of want to say off the bat, as we are limited to only talking about this book for one episode of a show, it's best to kind of nail the things that really stuck out to me first and foremost. This is a story of course, it's a rom-com. It is a funny as hell rom-com. There is a lot of humor. Even in that pitch you mentioned, there's a lot of opportunity for funny miscommunications, errors, problems arising, humor that will make you piss yourself with laughter.
Oh.
But it is also a story about self-improvement, self-love, giving yourself permission to love again, and giving yourself permission to love again after kind of, troubles get in the way. We were kind of talking about it, just beforehand, but you've had the folks that you have kind of acclaimed you. Funnily enough, a couple have been on the show before. Karina May, Amy Hutton, as we mentioned earlier. I also know, Natalie Murray from running into her at the Newcastle Writers Festival. They all praised the humor of this book.
Yeah.
And I think it's because you also balance that with the serious topics. And I think that's where humor really finds its success in stories like this. Because as you kind of allude to, there's a lot of stuff and dynamics going on there with the auntie kind of wanting that with this awful ex-husband who's a piece of trash. There's serious topics. There's serious topics of divorce, of picking yourself up after challenges, surviving the daily slog and mundanity of things and trying to get through. It's a balancing act to put that on the page. Tell me about the process of doing the balancing act.
Yeah, it really is. It's one of those things, as a rom-com reader, I love, like, what I'm drawn to is comedy. And so for me, that has to stand out. Otherwise, don't call it a rom-com, just call it a contemporary romance. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But even when you're tackling a rom-com, there can still be heavy topics in there. And I felt like, so obviously I can't go into spoiler territory, but I felt like the thing that Michaela was going through, it really needed enough page time to really explore that. I didn't want to gloss over it. I felt that that would have been insensitive to the reader. But it was making sure that that doesn't come into it till quite later on, we find out, but it is foreshadowed throughout the story. But it was making sure that the top, like the start of the story, is really funny. Like, we've got real comedic moments of her trying to tick off this list and obviously failing. But also after that happening, after we find out what's going on with her and why her marriage broke down, then also making sure that the end also had some lighter moments too. So it was really important to make sure I was bookending that in that way. Now, for me, when it comes to comedy, I actually don't really know what's going to land with the reader. It's really difficult because comedy is subjective. The only way I know is because I get feedback on my first draft as I'm writing it. So I'll write the first chapter, I send that to my 2 beta readers, and they'll actually tell me in the comments, like, they'll loll at the parts that they find funny. Or they'll say, this thing is funny, but I think you could amp it up more. Maybe this could happen, or, could you do something else? So I really rely on feedback to help me work out what is actually coming across, what's landing when it comes to the humor.
I think a great place to start in terms of talking about, like, particularly that humor element, is that we've got this lens of Michaela as kind of our protagonist, kind of this school teacher, and she's really kind of a lot of the basis for a lot of the humor. I immediately just was like, yeah, she's a school teacher. Like, from my mates who are school teachers, like, you've got to have a particular type of humor, you've got a particular type of sass to deal with that school environment. But also, of course, there's a lot of other elements with her too. She married young. She's divorced at a very young age. And I think also her humor can be somewhat of a self-defense mechanism, a little bit, to try and go through all of these troubles that she's dealing with. If you're on YouTube, I'm about to actually hold up the list in question, the no regrets list, which, funnily enough, I'm not going to lie, a lot of the stuff on this list really told me a lot about her life at that point. Like, I mean, not to take all of them away, but I mean, of course, this is not a spoiler. It's at the start of the book. She's tipped off having a one-night stand already. But things like traveling, things like buying lingerie, things like meeting someone on a dating app, going skinny dipping. Yeah. It told me that this is someone who, because she's married young and she's kind of dived into that world so early, that chance to go out and live and get miles on the soul has been something that it's something that she hasn't really had an opportunity to do yet, which has really framed so much about who she is. Tell me a little bit about Michaela.
Yeah, so I guess I should give some context to that list, in that the story is inspired by a friend who was in a situation where she had married her high school sweetheart and had divorced him. And so she was quite young, but she was entering the adult dating world for the very first time. And as we were sitting there comparing sort of our 20s, like she's sort of, making a home and, in married life. And I was like, oh, I was, overseas and doing all these things. And I just thought, it was just such a bizarre concept to me that she didn't have these sort of fundamental experiences. And I thought, okay, all right, I'm going to put together this list. And I asked my married friends, if you found yourself suddenly single, what new experiences would you want to try? And even though these are my friends who hadn't necessarily married young, they dated other people, they just came back with so many suggestions. And I thought, maybe this is a thing. Like, it was a really interesting discussion, like topic of discussion, that do we, even though these are things technically we could do, like Michaela could skinny dip if she wanted to, but sometimes when you're with the wrong person and perhaps they're, not bringing out the best in you, you feel a bit trapped. And so I really wanted to explore that with Michaela. Like, what does it look like to be married to someone or be in a wrong relationship or to settle? Because that's essentially what she's done. She's stayed with someone out of security and it hasn't worked out well for her. She's just continued doing the same thing and traveling along a path without realizing that she had other options. And you kind of also see her ex-husband, he blossoms without her too. So it's not that they're really bad people, although he's a bit of a douche.
Sorry. It is true, but because obviously we're seeing it from her perspective, he's a lot of the cause for a lot of those issues and pain that she's kind of dealing with here and uses that. But yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So he really blossoms without her too. And we see that as well. So they really just weren't right for each other. And this needed to happen in order for them to grow. But, she's looking at her life going, I've spent 11 years being married and she's only 29. So she really has to work out now who she is and what she wants. And she thinks that by doing all these things, she's going to make up for lost time.
And I also find it so interesting, there's a kind of I don't want to say it's like a subtext, but there's a whole thing about once you turn 30.
Yes.
Which I find as being 32 at the time of us recording hilarious, because it's there is this real narrative around you have to have all this stuff done by your 30 because 30 is the start of you being old, which I think is so funny, now being on the other side of 30. And going, you're exactly the same. It's for everyone. Spoiler for any 20-somethings, late 20-somethings who's traumatized about this. Don't worry, you're exactly the same. It's nothing really changes. It is just it is really a number. It's only 3 or 4 years difference in age, but it is kind of seen as this moment of just, you've got to have had this all done by your 30 because you're not young forever, and all of that blah, 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 which kind of often comes out. And I think it's so funny that it brings that in this, we introduced Beau into this podcast because Beau, he is the perfect foil for her. And okay, he's the latest in a trend that I really, really want to see continue. It may come as no surprise to you as well that I also talked about Amy Hutton because of her debut novel Sit Stay Love, which is a green flag guy. And maybe this is just me. I think that sensitive new age guys and nice guys is something that frankly we should be pushing a hell of a lot more. I never personally got the appeal of the bad boy, while I get, of course, that there's the romance and the danger element, which kind of makes it sexy, which is something that is of appeal and to individuals. I've always been but nice guys can give you that without the bullshit, right? Without all the emotional trauma that comes with it. If there's a nice, settled guy who is confident in his person, that's actually a really, really nice thing to have. And that's something, frankly, we should be pushing because, being seen as nice guys and who are sensitive and kind and gentle souls is something we should be encouraging more men to be like, because, everyone will be better off with that. Tell me a lot about Beau, because everyone loves Beau who has read this book. myself
Yes.
included.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, I love Bo. I forget that I created him. But I
He
think,
came from you.
yeah, he did. I think he came from, like, not just me, but what women want, in a man. And I did hear you say on that podcast with Amy that nice guys are sexy. And I was like, yes, yes, Nick, that's
They
so
are.
true. They
They
are.
are.
And Bo is really sexy, and he has boundaries, and he also knows how to address conflict like an adult. And just has this really mature approach to things. And he's just a really great contrast, or I should say, challenge to Michaela, who is used to someone who behaves kind of like a buffoon, basically. And so she has mirrored that as well. And so when she's not feeling safe, she will be really passive aggressive, or sometimes even just aggressive. And these are behaviors that she's learned because she's been in a relationship with, that's how they dealt with conflict, or they've completely swept it under the carpet. And now, how's that working for her? Well, it hasn't. And Bo is just a really great, he's showing, he holds up a mirror to her to be like, is that working? No, it's not. Like, this is how we have to actually deal with things. And I really love that about him. Also, he's a stickler for rules. And he keeps a dustbuster in his boot to like dustbust all the crumbs. And yes, I often say that it's like he's a blueprint for what women want. But despite all these things, like, he's just very damn sexy as well. And she finds that hot too. She's like, oof, like a guy that can actually, have a healthy conversation. Like, I've never had that before.
He's organized. He's
He's
got
organized.
his shit in order. That's what's sexy about it. You don't need to be like, there's no, like, he's not living like a slob.
Nah.
He's like, he is on point. He knows what he wants. There are a few things hotter than someone who has their shit together, because it's like they've done the journey. There's a journey. There's a subtext to that, which is that they've taken that journey to get there. And it's a self-love thing too. Like, they've found comfort and being comfortable in their person, which is something that all of us are striving for. So if someone is actually as close as they can to attaining that, or in a place of that, of course that's damn sexy, because it's a hard thing to do. We all get that. Sorry, did I lose you there for a sec?
No. Sorry. I didn't realize if you were asking a question or not.
Sorry, I realized I had no question to add there. That was my bad.
No, we're just like, Bo's hot. He's hot. He's sexy. Like, guys, just read it, and this is what women want. Just be like Bo.
Yeah, just be like Bo, guys. Set the standard here. Of course, there are other characters in this story, but before we do get to that, I actually do want to talk about let's stay with Michaela and Bo for a bit, because what's great about this story is that the love story kind of grows naturally. There's the other elements that kind of come into the story, which we will keep spoiler free, but there are. And I love how the romance between these two develop. There's a chemistry that crackles and builds and gets stronger between them, and as the inevitable love grows. Talk to me about the joys, but also the challenges of creating romance on the page from your experience with these two.
Yeah. So one of the things is these are strangers that you're putting together. So there's no foundation that you're building upon. Like if you were doing a friends to lovers type of story, this is strangers to lovers. So you're really starting from scratch, which can be a challenge, because how do you make sure that over this period of time, there's enough build up to, that keeps the reader interested? I mean, we know it's a romance. We know they're going to end up together. Like, spoiler, that's just what happens. But it's just the journey of like, how easy is that experience going to be for them? So that is a challenge, because you sort of got to be like, okay, total strangers. You've got to create a first initial physical attraction, because I think that's always a place where it comes from when you meet new people. And you can see that she's very physically attracted to him. But in order to create a stronger connection, she needs to sort of like remove layers of that emotional vulnerability. And he is someone who slowly guides her there. Like, he can tell if he pushes her too hard, she's just going to run. So they just have some really great moments where that happens, and you see her get more and more vulnerable with him over time. It was a joy to write this story in general. I just have the best fond memories. You know how some people, when they say they write a book and it almost killed them, I just didn't have that experience with this one. I just every day I was like, oh, what's Michaela up to today? Oh, I can't wait to see Bo. I just felt this absolute joy. So I hope that comes out in the story when I was writing it. But I mean, it just is, you have to put two people together that challenge each other in some way. And so while we're seeing that with Michaela, with her vulnerability, Michaela's also helping Bo because he's a new teacher and he's finding it really difficult with the students. And so even though he's older than Michaela and he is more mature and stuff like that, she actually has that professional experience, and he can really lean into that as well. So I think they just really complement each other in some way, that they're helping each other be a better version of themselves.
Yeah, she's got the EQ. She's been around the block a little bit more. She knows the audience that the teachers have to challenge and work with and speak with every day. So she kind of, which is such a great way to kind of get them to allow that to grow kind of naturally and organically. There are other characters in this story, as kind of we alluded to beforehand. There is this auntie character. There is this husband. There's workplace arch nemesis as well.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of these other characters in this story.
Okay. Well, Nick, I used to be a high school teacher, and so that helps.
Oh, I could tell. I'm sorry.
And let me tell you that schools really lend themselves to great inspiration for characters. That's my legal answer, okay, Nick? But they really do, because you've just got so many different people. They're all you would think they're there to help students and they really care about education, but that's actually not the case in that industry. But it's also an industry that's really rife with bullying, and there's a real hierarchy within the system as well. And you have a lot of teachers who have been there for a long time and they don't like change. They just do not want change. So, there's just all these it's almost like Game of Thrones. There's lots of power tripping happening in a school environment. So I just found that, yeah, you go.
No way, like Game of Thrones comparison with oh yeah, let's go to school today. What's going to happen with let's do the
Someone's
Game
going to get their head chopped off. Yes.
Yeah.
No, it really does feel like that. It feels like that when you're there. You just, you feel like you've got to put this armor on, and you would think that you're battling the students, and you're not. You're actually, the teachers are acting more like children than the students are. And I have a lot of friends that are teaching. I don't teach anymore because, it's not a great environment. So I know that it's still toxic like that. But yeah, so we have Agnes. She is Michaela's workplace arch nemesis, and she's a lady in her 60s. So not the usual arch nemesis that you would have at work, but Agnes is brilliant. She is on a power trip, absolutely. But she came to be one of my favorite characters. And she's not as bad as Michaela thinks she is, because we are seeing everything from Michaela's point of view, and she just thinks everyone's out to get her all the time. But they do have this really fun rivalry, and they have a swim teachers race that they do every year, and Agnes usually always wins her team, the Sharks. And this year Michaela's like, lady, I am winning, especially because Michaela is the sports teacher. So it's paramount that she actually wins at an athletic sort of event. But yeah, I had lots of fun with Agnes. She was supposed to be just a throwaway sort of character. I was just having her in the first chapter. And then again, I had that feedback from a beta reader that was like, she seems really fun. You should lean into this. And then I did. And just Agnes has this main character energy, and she just took over. So it's not even my fault. It's Agnes's fault.
Yeah, damn it. But I will say she is a hell of a lot of fun. Tell me about this auntie and also this husband character.
Yeah.
Because we'll try and stay as spoiler free as we can, because there's that whole other thing of going on around Michaela's 30th birthday. But it is it's a really strange dynamic when it comes to the family side of things for Michaela, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think normally in any story, you either like when family comes into it, it's either like a parent child or a sibling relationship. And I was like, what if it's an auntie? And what if they're really close in age as well? Because that often happens. So they're sort of 10 years apart. So they almost could be friends, but there's also this element of Michaela really looking up to her auntie and respecting her. And also seeing almost like what her future looks like. She's very similar to her auntie. And so sometimes she thinks that's a good thing. She's like, yeah, she's really tough. She's strong. She like doesn't take crap from people. But then Michaela coming to realize, is that who I want to be? I mean, is she happy? So that's Quinn. And she plays an important role because she's really bribing Michaela to stay single because she's had such an awful breakup as well. And she thinks, Michaela, like you've just come out of a marriage. You can't be going around dating this guy. Like you need to stay single and work out what you want. But she's really projecting her own stuff on Michaela. And then we've got her ex-husband, Warren, AKA Was. And oh god, he was really fun to write too. So like I said, he's quite a douchebag, but again we're seeing him from the perspective of Michaela, who's very angry at him, and she feels the only way to get back at him is so the item that they're fighting over is a 1967 Ford Mustang that was previously owned by her grandmother, who is the founding president of the Mustang Owners Club of New South Wales. So originally it didn't really have that much sentimental value to her. She just wanted it because Warren is really into cars. He's always wanted it. And she thought this is a great way to get back at him.
Petty reasons. Yeah.
So petty, so petty. But she comes to learn that the car has a lot of history. It tells her a lot about her family and things that she didn't know or appreciate when her grandmother was alive. And it also helps her bond with the Mustang Owners Club members, people who she didn't think she really would have much in common with, but ends up finding out that she does and really, wants to be part of that world more than she thought.
It's a great little extra dynamic that happens kind of in the background of this main story with Michaela and Beau. And there's a great line at the end which kind of really nails it towards the end of the story, where Michaela really talks about trying to face her fears and take advice on facing her fears. And out of curiosity, you want listeners and readers to kind of go, yeah, I'm going to get whatever I can out of this story, because it's, that's the great thing that any book can do, is it gives you, a chance for pause on yourself and enjoy it from a piece of art from their own context. Out of curiosity, I love that you loved writing this story. It was like a joy for you and a pleasure. What did this book teach you? Like the actual creative process of getting it out there. What did it teach Holly, the person, or the professional, or the writer, or whatever?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So much. One thing I learnt was not to always follow the rules, because normally in a rom-com, the female protagonist will be someone who is super likable and happy. Well, not always happy. Sometimes they're in a bit of a mess, but usually someone that you would want to be best friends with. And Michaela's not that character. She's super prickly. She's blunt. She's sarcastic. And, I did have comments along the way of, oh, Michaela's not very likable in this scene. And that would really sort of like scare me in a way, because I was like, oh, like, does she have to be likable? And I sort of would bristle against it and be like, you know what? If that's the only thing that's wrong with that scene, I actually don't care. You don't have to like her. You just have to care what's happening to her and want to keep reading. And if you still are invested in the story, then so be it. So I'm glad that I didn't pander to the expectation of the genre. There's also some other things within the genre. Usually the intimacy wouldn't happen. You would delay it as long as possible. It would usually happen in the third act. I mean, they bang straight up. So, yep. I kind of threw that rule out the window, but they also have multiple, intimate encounters. But how do you still increase the tension and still want that to keep happening? So, you know, again, I went against the grain. So I think I learned that you don't always have to follow the rules, even though I'm a massive rule follower. I'm glad that in that case, I went into it a bit naive and not really thinking about, would I get in trouble for this later? Which I didn't. I think that's what the appeal was then for my agent and then the publisher. They were like, I love that she has a proper character arc. Like, it's not just about the romance. So, you know, I'm glad I sort of went with a character that was a bit feisty.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could tell like there was a bit of a like messing around with the tropes and things a little bit that I always kind of say yes to. It's the whole point of writing books and putting new spins on it, on any sort of genre, whether it be rom-com, whether it be crime or horror. If there's a chance to subvert it, do it. I love the people who go, hey, let's break the rules. The rules don't matter. We don't got to follow these rules. Smash everything. It's the best. So, out of curiosity, off the back of that, what's next? Will we see more from Holly the writer?
I mean, I hope so. I have finished a novel recently, so we'll see what happens with that. Well, actually, I'd actually written the first draft before I submitted this novel, What Did I Miss, to my agent, because I was worried that once I submitted it, I would be just discombobulated and so fixated on getting published that I wouldn't be able to write anything after that. So I quickly sort of like wrote something else, and then I've spent the year editing that. And now I've started planning out a third story as well, because I mean, the second one, it might not get picked up, like who knows? And if it doesn't, well, I've got plenty of other ideas, so we'll see. But the next one's a bit different. I mean, it's still a rom-com, it's still funny, and there's quirky characters, but it's a whimsical rom-com, which is a different tone to this one. But I feel like I can't just keep writing the same feisty character. I need to creatively extend myself and see what else I can do.
I love it. I love it. Don't put yourself in a box. Always have some fun with it and play around with it. Always smash everything. It's the best approach to everything. We'll finish off the show with a rapid fire part of the date. You've listened to these episodes before. You knew it was coming. Are you afraid?
No, I'm excited. I'm ready. Let's go.
Oh, good. That's the first time someone's been like, "Oh God, here we go." So the first one is, of course, similar to kind of the formula. Let's talk about your book habits and your reading habits. What's your favorite book that you have read in the last 12 months?
Yep. So it is Such a Small World by Jordan Clayton Lewis, and it is a speculative queer love story. Do you want me to tell you a bit about it, or just is that
absolutely? Because I've never heard of it.
Okay, fantastic. Well, this is Jordan's second novel, and I loved his first one, so I was like, I have to read the second. So Mackenzie has the ability to see a relationship timeline. Meaning, like when he meets people, he's like, I know how long we're going to last. And then he meets Jasper, and he can see that they're just going to fall madly in love, but Jasper's going to die. So Mackenzie's in this position where he has to say, okay, do I fall in love with this man and then, you know, it's going to have a tragic ending and, you know, I'm going to be heartbroken? Or do I actually completely ignore him, move on, and just sort of find someone else where there's going to be perhaps, you know, a longer relationship where the person's not going to die? So that's the premise of it. But Jordan, he writes just beautiful setting. Like, setting is actually my favorite thing to read. And he writes, because they go on a road trip, he writes about the Australian landscape so beautifully. He also writes really realistic sex scenes as well. So I found the sex in there, like, you know, sometimes it was awkward or sometimes it was like really exciting, but I just found it to be realistic. And I really liked that in there. And he doesn't shy away from having multiple intimate moments in his stories as well. So yeah, I would highly recommend reading that.
Oh, what a great pitch. Love it. What a great one. What's your favorite debut that you've ever read?
Yeah. Okay. Loving Lizzie March by Susanna Hardy. Her debut came out around the time of COVID. I think maybe maybe the year after, like 2021. So I feel like not enough people know about this book, but I remember reading it and just going, wow, I was so impressed with the pace of it and how drawn I was into the story immediately. So if anyone's ever looking for an example of what commercial voice looks like, or just voice in general, a strong voice, go and read the first chapter of Loving Lizzie March, because that will tell you a lot. And it's very funny. So again, something that I love. And I just, every time I'm sort of a bit stuck, I'll go back and read her first chapter and be like, this is what I have to do to pull people into a story. So go check it out.
Oh, sounds amazing. Yes, please. Do you have a favorite word?
I love the word discombobulated, because I think I always feel that way. I have here. Yeah, maybe that's because I always feel that way. So it's just a fun word. I actually do keep a list of words on my phone, and every time I hear a cool word, I write it down. I also do it for characters. If I hear a word that I think a character would use, I will write that down. Like I have a character and she wouldn't say typing, she'd say typity type, so I love using like a very particular sort of like lingo for my characters.
That's a great that's a good answer, because it's a good creative technique that you can do with to kind of give each character their voice or anything like that. Off the back of saying that we're smashing tropes, do you have a favorite romance trope?
Oh gosh, the thing is, I actually don't have a favorite trope. I think a trope can be done really well, and it can also be done really awful. So as long as it's executed well, I'm happy with it. I don't have a favorite one. Trope is not something that draws me into a story. I don't read those, when you see those beautiful Canva creations and people put the tropes all around the book. If it's a book that I want to read, I actually will ignore those. I'll like it to support you, but I will not read the tropes. I don't want to know. Don't want to know. And because like I like to go into a story not knowing. And if you tell me like it's a, second chance with only one bed and he falls first, I'm like, I feel like I already know the story. Like that doesn't.
Yeah, you've kind of said it.
You've said it.
I'm now so tempted to ask like, what was your favorite trope to smash? But I kind of feel like that's a bit too too cheeky and on the nose to say, because I mean people do love the tropes. It is something they get joy out of. Off the back of Bo being a green flag boy, what is your favorite green flag?
I think honesty. Honesty is a really good one. I think when you don't have honesty, it puts you in a position of like fear, and you just don't really know where you stand with someone. Even if that honesty is going to hurt someone, I think it's always better to know the information than to not know the information. Yeah. Honesty is a big one for me, because that's about trust, and that's about valuing someone enough as well.
That's a good one. I like that. Michaela suddenly comes to life in front of you, and she tells you that she's going to go on a date with this guy named Bo. Do you have any dating advice for her? Knowing what you know.
No. Well, for Michaela, I would say don't send him a list of rules of things that he's not allowed to do on the date, because she's just cock blocking herself, basically. And especially don't send it to someone who is really firm with their boundaries and following rules, because when you want him to break them, he won't. So that would be my advice for Michaela. And also just come on, put on something a little bit nicer than your stinky t-shirt that you fished out of the laundry basket. Make an effort, Michaela. Come on.
God, Michaela. Jesus. Do you have, obviously because you're part of that amazing, beautiful community that is the Romance Writers of Australia, do you think that there is a favorite rom-com author that you think is underrated, or pardon the pun, being slept on?
I don't think any of them are underrated. I would highly rate all the Australian rom-com authors. I think they do a brilliant job at creating rom-coms that are both funny but also have really deeper themes. And I think stop underestimating rom-coms in general. They're not light and fluffy. There's a lot going on in there. And, you know, how beautiful to explore people falling in love. That's part of, you know, why we're human and what we sort of strive for in our everyday life. We're always thinking about our connections with people. So no, so I don't have anyone I think is underrated. I think I would highly rate them all.
Great answer. I love that. And I also appreciate you saying don't underrate the rom-com genre, because people so often assign baggage to it. And so it can be, which I think is disappointing, because there's a hell of a lot of great rom-com stories out there that are more than just the falling in love story. There is so much more to it than that. At the risk of being way too cheeky, as a penultimate one, have you done everything on the no regrets list?
That's a good one. No, I haven't, because, you know what, I haven't done the dating app, because dating apps came out after I met my husband. So
Same.
I do love to have a squiz at other people's. Like, I'm like, let me swipe for you. So I've never done that. I also haven't done the speed dating, and I would have loved to have done that. I think that'd be really fun, but I would probably just make up stuff about myself and pretend I'm, you know, some other person. I think most of the other stuff on there I've done. So people will have to have a look at the list and be like, yeah, but it's not autobiography, like biographical, the story. This is not based on my life at all. Just want to make that clear, because, Nick, I have students that are now adults and they're asking me, is this based on you? Because they know it's based on a high school teacher. And I was like, no, I did not do those things. Please do not think that I did those things. Especially the thing that they do at the school camp did not happen. Just want to make that clear.
Yeah, that wasn't meant to be an autobiographical question, more just to satisfy just a curiosity about it. But anyway, last question.
Yeah.
Are you happy?
Oh, so happy. So happy. This has been really fun. I'm happy, excited that I got the opportunity to write a book, for it to be published. I'm terrified about people reading it. That feels very scary. It's like someone glimpsing into your diary, even though, like I said, it's not my life, but still people are thinking that as they read it. And also just people judging it or putting their projections on something that's made me so happy. It's sort of like when you come out and you're wearing something that you really love and you're so happy, and then someone says, oh, like, are you going to wear that? That's how I sort of feel about bringing my book out. Like, what if people have that reaction, and it makes me not love my book as much. But at the moment, I'm bloody happy. I feel that I worked with such a great team. I actually miss my editor. We just had a lot of fun.
Aww.
So yeah. I feel like we had a breakup. Like, I'm like, is there any other reason we could talk to each other?
You'll have to write another book. That's the solution. I will. I think that's a fair thing to say. And at the end of the day, I think my only response is, like, you know, some people might not vibe with it at the end of the day.
Yeah.
What matters is that it brought you joy. And
yes.
That's the most important thing. I think I had a response to a review to one of my books where they gave it like 2 stars because there was too much swearing, and I was just like, oh, that's just because of the voice. It was like 4 guys, and like guys swear all the time. They're the worst at swearing. So I was like, I can't control that. It's out of my control. At least they gave it a shot, and I appreciate them giving it a shot. So
yeah, and that person should not read. They should not read my book because there's lots of swearing in it as well. I had to give a list of words when they were doing the audiobook of like offensive language or vulgar language. And I was like, oh, this is a long list. Be prepared, people.
I love it. Well, everyone, this is what to be prepared for. It is this beautiful book. What Did I Miss? Holly is the amazing author of it. At the time of us recording, it's not out, but when you're listening to it, it will be out in the world. It's published by HarperCollins. You can go and get a copy of it right now in the description. Holly, thank you so much. This has been so much fun.
Oh, thank you, Nick. This has been a blast.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Date with a Debut, and for listening to the Words and Nerds channel. You can buy all books mentioned in today's episode down in the description box, and if you enjoyed the show, drop us a review, leave us 5 stars or a thumbs up. It really helps the show out. If you want to hear episodes when they drop, be sure to subscribe to Words and Nerds, or you can subscribe to Date with a Debut on Podbean to hear the latest episodes as they drop. Want to support the show more? You can also subscribe to my Patreon in the description to get early access to episodes, book reviews, recommendations, and a whole lot more. Catch you soon! Date with a Debut is a Words and Nerds and Breathe Art podcast co-production.